As Stokvels become an increasingly popular way for South Africans to make and save money, I'm joined on the line by economist Gerald Mwandi-Ambira to speak a little bit more about Stokvels. Gerald, thanks for joining us. So can you explain to us on a very basic level, what is a Stokvel?
A Stockwell essentially is a group of people who have joined together with a common interest for the purpose of saving, investing, or sometimes just to hang out. I think Stockwells right now are being made to seem financial, but to be quite honest, Stockwell started off as a social grouping where women or men would meet regularly, and from those meetings, they then decided to start addressing social needs, of which some of them used to be burial societies about burying members of the community, and then it grew to groceries, and it's getting more complex now into savings as well as investments. But essentially, a Stockwell is a group of people with a common interest who meet regularly.
Now, is it fair to assume that these people either pool money and invest it corporately, or how exactly are people in South Africa making money off their Stokvels?
I think it's there are different types of stokvels in South Africa at the moment. Basically, there's not a one size fit all solution, because you have stokvels which fall into the lower LSM groupings, which are the lower income groupings, as well as stokvels which sit very much in the high LSM groupings. And all these are functioning in a different way. For the stokvels in the lower LSM groupings, as you can understand, their objectives are more to meet the lower needs on the on Maslow's hierarchy. They're dealing with the physiological needs. So they're dealing with food, they're dealing with burial, and they're dealing with really the basics around saving, because they're in a lower LSM grouping and they're using the power of the Stokvel to try and get discounts when they shop and to basically address community needs such as death. Okay. When you start looking at Stokvels which have migrated into the higher LSM groupings, you're now dealing with groups which are much more complex, because they don't have those psychosocial needs of food and burial. They're complex. These are people who are employed, they've got group life policies, and they've got cars, and they've got homes. When you go into the higher LSM groupings, you start to encounter Stokvel groupings which are either meeting simply for social purposes, or B, they also have business interests, or they're looking at more complex investment options.
Now, we always assume that Stokvels are commonplace among lower LSM groups, but as you've mentioned, this isn't the case. And according to a recent FinWeek article, it seems that the middle class are making increasing use of Stokvels. So what would be the benefit of the middle class using Stokvels?
I think, again, it goes back to the root that Stokvels are a social phenomenon, and middle class people have the need to socialize and meet with their peers on a regular basis, just as much as the lower LSM groupings. So the middle class, which you're saying is starting to use these Stokvels, is simply a second generation of South Africans who are now entering Stokvels. So essentially, their parents and grandparents perhaps were in Stokvels for burial or for food purposes, but these are now children who've been educated perhaps through Stokvel money, and are now graduates and are now employed. And they're simply starting to replicate what they grew up seeing. And they are now meeting primarily, A, because it's a social habit and it's a social cause passed on from mother to daughter or father to son. And from those discussions, they are also starting to look at options such as saving and investing in order to buy large purchases. So essentially what happens is a typical saving scheme in a stokvel is that the funds are rotated. So for if you have a stokvel of 12 members, one would receive all the contributions every month in turn. So you get an opportunity to buy a lump sum which you would probably take 12 months to save for.